All right, let's see how everything's going here. Do I get everything set right? Yeah, you guys should be able to hear what I'm saying. You guys should be able to see Ranger. Both the camera and he have been turned in that room. I don't know how the camera got turned, but I know that he pushes his bed around. So you guys can see more of the room now. That's kind of funny. I'm going to pull up some other stuff in the Grafana space around here. Let's pull up our lab servers. See how the lab's doing. Virtualization's not being heavily used. Dungeons aren't being used at all, really. And nobody's in there. People were in there in the last 24 hours, though. The people were jumping into the boxes, maybe a little longer ago. Anyways, what else do we got? Security and connectivity. Get rid of that for now. Dungeon doesn't matter. Yeah, we're doing good. All right. Home lab's looking good. Nothing's too overworked. None of the systems are doing too much wild and crazy stuff. I'm pretty sure I have my home lab stuff here. Yeah, if we need to do any stuff in the home lab, we got this up. If you guys got questions for me, let me know. I am just hanging out for a little bit before I got to do some more work tonight. We're just, work long hours at my company, and we're doing multiple big contracts with government and some of the big vendors out there. So we've been spending a lot of time getting stuff going on. I got asked over. Oh, hey, how's it going on the YouTube side? Welcome to the DMZ. Yeah. We do have the DMZ out there. IC over on Twitch said, "What's my hypervisor?" My hypervisor is actually a pretty simple little tool. I use XCPNG. So if you guys have never played with it, it's not that I don't recommend it, right? I think it's a perfectly fine tool. A lot of stuff that you guys will hear me talk about, right? Like you guys say like, oh, hey, what do you think about NixOS? Or what do you think about this and this and this? A lot of the times you'll hear me say, well, it's not, whatever this tool is cool and I like it, but it's not used in the industry, right? So where I'm going with that is my XCPNG is a perfectly fine tool for somebody's home lab. It's perfectly fine for me to play with. But the application of things in this tool here do not really build towards like doing stuff inside of like a professional environment, if that makes sense. Hey, how's it going, Data Sherpa? I haven't seen you on in a while, but you're around. Did you know we got a big event coming up, Data? I don't know if anybody's told you that or if you've been around, but we've got a big event coming up for some of you guys that are interested, or if you like playing in Discord. We were turning 5 years old on Discord, right? Like we've been using Discord for 5 years. The group itself has existed for 10 years. And we're just doing a whole bunch of events. So there's a whole bunch of events coming up. Different people from the group are talking about stuff with different levels of people's interest. I think the one that people are most interested in is probably Robbie Reed, who's going to come and talk about being a director of engineering for a pretty good-sized company. And he's pretty high up over there. But he's going to come and talk about CI/CD, DevOps, and then this acronym here that you got to come listen to him talk about to know. It's basically DevOps before people called it DevOps, because he's been around so long. Inside Sources, how's it going? I'm going to talk first. I didn't find anybody to kick it off. I would have let somebody else kick it off, but I'm going first. But there's a lot of good data topics coming up. Ben is he teaches PhD mathematics and economics over at UC Irvine, so he's a good buddy of mine. He's going to come talk about data analytics and numbers, and he might even talk about what his dissertation's on, which is a pretty interesting topic around prices of homes in Colorado since legalization of marijuana. And he uses treated and non-treated. He actually splits things out. I've edited it twice now for him, but it's he treats each county as if they were affected or were not affected by different stages, and then what actually happened to their increases in home prices or whatever. And it's just interesting, whether you're on a good side of that or not. He actually doesn't even get into it, besides the legalization and what the actual effects were, right? So it's a really interesting thing. Jared's going to come and talk data stuff. He talks data analytics and tracking people with Google, right? He does a lot of that in websites and slipping out good bots from bad bots. He talks about that kind of stuff because there are good bots out there. People think like, oh, it's all bad bots. Every bot out there is bad. Well, all of the bots that are sitting here banging on my server are bad, sure. All of these bots right here, all these attempted logins of people trying to get into my server. Look at those. Oh man, there's like hundreds of them. Those are bad. But ones that are going and hitting your web page and ordering stuff or checking prices inside of your page to update downstream vendor or third party client, that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Hey, Abden over on the YouTube side, I just hopped on for a little bit. And what I was going to do was show you guys that no good deed goes unpunished, right? So you do good at work and you start to work on stuff. And then they figure out how to use this tool, and they figure out how to do whatever, and the next thing you know, now you're doing all of it. So let me show you guys the role that I've kind of found myself falling into. Hold on, let me pull these back up. I'm gonna leave these spinning for a second, also because Ranger looks super cute down there. Oh, where'd he go? Ranger ran off. Well, you guys will notice that the camera's turned. I always told you there's a kitchen over there. First time you've been able to see it. Yeah, Data, wait till you hear about what's happened to me. I have been pulled into STIG land, which is, for people that don't know, it's Security Technical Implementation Guides or Guidelines. Inside source, you said you opened 3389 and opened Invent Viewer to see failed logins, and it was filled instantly. Yeah, if you have something exposed to the web, you better expect it to start getting hit immediately. We used to do it in here where we would stand up a bunch of AWS instances for you guys to use. We used to do that on stream here. Back before we got onto Killer Coda and used Killer Coda for everything. And what would happen was, I remember most of those public IP addresses for Amazon EC2 instances would be scanned, actual Nmap scanning, in under 5 minutes. Yeah, Data Sherpa, I'm doing a lot of STIG stuff. All right, guys, I need 2 minutes. Hold on, we'll let people keep popping in because we just started. We'll give people a few minutes. I put my hourglass and I'm going to say, give me 2 minutes. Quick break. 2 minutes. I'll be right back. I gotta go check on something. I'm back. Yep, didn't take as long as I thought. All right, so back to these STIGs, right? What are STIGs? We've talked about them. I've shown them to you guys on stream a little bit here. But what am I stuck doing with them? So let me tell you what happened. So as with a lot of things in life, you do some work and then you have to show whoever you're doing the work for what the work was. And in the government space, it's no different. We go and we say, hey, we're going to set up, some of you guys were here the other day, I was doing STIGs with my Linux boxes, right? And when you do STIGs with Linux, you can pull up the actual run that was doing, whatever kind of SCAP scanning or OpenSCAP type tooling you're using, and you can get scores for what was happening in the system. Well, as soon as I go and I give this meeting yesterday. You needed it, Rexford. Well, hopefully it's useful for you. The DISA STIG viewers come in the 2 version and the 3 version. I'm back on the 2 version just for simplicity's sake, and I kind of like these. And what happened was, in this meeting, we go, hey, yeah, we stigged up our environment. We've got the compute nodes, and then we're going to have the GPU nodes and the login nodes and all these different nodes that are just slightly different because of their requirements and what they need and some stuff. So we're talking to the government. They go, well, hold on. Are you guys also doing all of your managed switches? And are you also doing all of your MariaDB databases or any databases in your environment? And are you also doing any of your Apache web servers? And we were like, and well, now I get to do all those too. So there's a significant amount of, so what ends up happening is you can go and you can do a lot of these as checks. Like, look, these are pretty significant. I mean, look, I only have 22 of these to do, but I can go check the switches in my environment and say, okay, if a server's on, right, here's the fix. If it is doing something, let's see what the crux of this one is. We read up at the top. Verify the switch configuration has an 802.1x authentication implemented for all access switch ports connecting to LAN outlets or devices not located in the telecom room, wiring closets, or equipment rooms. Well, right out, I know that doesn't matter because nothing that we do connects outside of a server room. In fact, we're air-gapped. So this becomes, and down here it should say, there's fixed text if it's busted. Then there should be some references. But I should be able to, if I see right here, that it's not, they don't have it, they don't say it. Typically they'll say, if this does not connect outside, then this is not applicable. And if it is, then I can say, like down here in my comments, I could say something like, no connections made outside of system. This system is completely air-gapped. Right, I can say that. And one of the nice things is I can grab this and copy it, and then I can come up here and say this is not a finding. Now, if they use the term not applicable, only if they use the term not applicable can you use not applicable. But I can say this is not a finding, and what you see immediately is now my Cisco iOS is 4.54% in compliance. So then I come down here and I say, okay, this talks about the VLAN trunk protocol, VTP, which is, VTP is something only in Cisco devices. It's a Cisco protocol, right? And you can allow your devices to tell other devices about VLANs. Suffice it to say, like if you have 3 switches on a network and they are not trunked in some way, I'm gonna go back to my switching for people that aren't a big fan of or haven't done a lot of networking. In switch space, if there's not a trunk between your switches, and you have, let's say you have VLAN 1, VLAN 10, and VLAN 20 in an environment. It's like marketing, networking, and some other thing. I don't know, whatever your VLANs are. And you do not have a trunk between those switches. You have 3 completely different VLANs on each of those switches. They will not talk to each other. Hey, Monkey Man, how's it going? We are just like, we're doing some STIG stuff. We're just talking STIGs, right? And what I was saying was I got this other stuff done, so now I get to hop out and do these too. So I'm not showing you guys, look, I'm not showing you anything from an environment. I don't show you guys that stuff on here. This is a government checklist that you can download right off of the DISA site. You just go to, what's the site? You just go to one of these. It's like public, yeah, public.cyber.mil STIGs, and you'll get a warning, right? There's always a little warning that'll pop up and say, oh, make sure you're using this for government reasons, which we are, right? And then you come in here and you can look at applications. In this case, I was looking for applications. I see I will not be streaming too long today. I'm actually going to hop back on a work call in a little bit and keep doing some work. We've been doing a lot in this environment. I think I told you guys we're heavily using this tool right now called Werewolf. And we're heavily using this, well, we have been using this tool called Bright. But Bright is owned by NVIDIA, and while it works just great, it's kind of, it's licensed, and I just think people that I've been seeing in the industry are moving away from it. So, Bright's still in some big clusters, but Werewolf is kind of, Werewolf's kind of like up and coming. So I even built a werewolf cluster at home the last few weeks. Where's my home lab? Over here. And I've just got, there's some pretty cool little stuff going on in here for my little werewolf environment where I can like deploy these nodes and tear them down and stand them up. Too close to China? No, I don't do much with China. But I forget what I was saying. Anyways, back to the STIGs. Let's go look at the STIGs for a little bit. Oh, let's check on Ranger. Ranger's back. Look at the STIGs. So, you know, VTP, and then it comes down here, and this will be interesting to see. Authenticating VTP messages with the cryptographic hash function can reduce the risk of VTP domains being compromised. We are not going to be running VTP in our environment. So as long as, and it should say it down here, VTP is enabled, not authenticating, this is the finding. So we're going to have VTP not enabled. I already know that. So I'm going to say, I'm going to check this though. VTP not enabled. This is not a finding, right? And you might say, well, Scott, why don't you write something? If I was going to do this enough, I would probably just write an Ansible playbook to go log in and do these checks. But this is fine for me for this. For like a one-off type thing, I probably won't be in this exact environment again. But this is kind of the STIGs that we're going to use for Cisco iOS whatever version of an environment that we're in. There are different Cisco iOS vulnerabilities. And by the way, guys, in case you're wondering, Cisco had the term iOS 25 years before Apple ever decided to. In case anybody's ever wondering about that. We've been saying iOS and networking way longer than anybody's been using an iOS on their phone. So just in case anybody's curious about that. All right, but this isn't a competition. This is just us looking at stuff. All right, so what's this next one? This next one is DSCP. There's a denial service is a condition. When a resource is not available, we know that. Flooding packets with a distributed denial service are referred to as volumetric attacks. We know about that. Easy launch using readily available tools such as low orbit ion cannon or by using botnets. Sure. This is not going to be configured to, this is not going to connect outside of our network. So we don't actually have to probably do any of this DSCP. Let's go look, let's read. Yeah, this is not applicable. Yeah, there's going to be a lot. Yeah, STIGs are, you know what I think about with STIGs? The way I think about any of these things is it's one of these things where it's a good recommendation. Like if you were going to sit down and I was like, all right, guys, let's write Scott's doctoral dissertation right now. And I came over here and I just went like this. Let's start. Let's go. Just open up. Let's write a doctoral dissertation real quick. Let's just start. And I say, how are we gonna do here, guys? We'd all be like, well, I have no fucking idea what we're gonna write. And that's the truth. It's very hard to start from nothing. So one of the reasons I like STIGs or any of these recommended things is it gives me a way to look at stuff and go, oh yeah, well, because I've been teaching networking for almost 20 years. It was 16 years technically at the college level, right? And I know all about spanning tree, right? I think I know it pretty well. I know exactly how bridge protocol data units work, right? Like I've been sending them and using them all over the place. But I wouldn't have maybe thought about them, as much as somebody who's thinking about them from a security standpoint as something to just check off. I'd have been like, BPDUs are just the way that switches talk and, whatever. But they're talking about things that have happened, right? More formal topology places the root bridge at specific predetermined location. Yeah, typically what we do is when spanning tree protocol starts, right? You send these BPDUs around with randomized numbers associated with them. They take it's a function of a randomized number and then also their MAC address, right? And you can set that number yourself, which is what they're saying here. We do not allow this to pick where stuff's going to leave the network. In most cases, we determine that by setting the root bridge. And I think they're probably talking about that is make sure that you have the root bridge set. So We'll make sure that that's on. But again, if you're not using, if you're spanning tree protocol only comes into play, if you guys know, can't imagine working this. And this might not be too bad. One of our guys in our Discord was just saying that their wife works at one of the security places. It wasn't this though. It was another one, and he was saying his goal was to get over there. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. Yeah, Moop, I appreciate you coming by. We're not working too hard today, right? I won't be on too long. I just wanted to throw some STIG stuff up here and talk shop a little bit. Maybe update a little bit on one of the labs that we had just put together. I put together a lab the other day, and wanted to. In fact, I finished it up right as we got off of stream. So I'm gonna move that over a little bit. Let's do the lab real quick, in case any of you guys want to do it. And I'm gonna work on putting it. It's gonna be up in the book here soon. And then I'll be republishing the book in early August. So anybody that's ever bought the book before, you guys always get updates forever. But let's go to Crater, Hetanis, and then we come down to our Linux labs, and we've got this brand new lab. I'll pin it for you guys that want to do it with me. But we're going to do rsyslog, setting up rsyslog in an environment. Greetings from Argentina. Hey, how's it going? I am in Arizona. So Arizona is part of the southern part of America, the United States of America, that is. Sometimes people like to disambiguate those, but I've been calling it America my whole life, so I get that. But yeah, and hopefully this stuff's useful to you guys wherever you are. Hopefully, you find some value about, even if it's just joining the Discord, right? Like the Discord is always available for you guys. We've got events coming up down there, that kind of stuff. And Crosby's from Poland, nice. Nice. All right, so where are we at here? Typically, when we do labs, I will pull up like a notepad over here on the right, and I don't even know what's on this notepad. I don't have anything in the notepad now, but sometimes I'll have different things in the notepad of like what I'm working on or what I'm writing, and then I'll have different notes of whatever values kind of going on. So. Data Sherpa with the Prime. Thank you for that, man. I always appreciate that. You guys can use those anywhere, and you chose to use it here, so that kind of feels good. Also, Data, you're always welcome to hang out in Discord. I know one of our guys was having a machine learning challenge yesterday. He was doing something. He had pulled a data set off of Kaggle, and he was working on his capstone for his... actually, it was capstone for his bachelor's, and then he's going to transfer over and start working on his master's. But he's one of our guys. He's one of our senior guys. Very, very talented coder. Was working in machine learning, and he and I were looking at it. But then he was gonna, if he didn't get it fixed last night, he was gonna post it over to the rest of the Discord to look at. But it just had to do with a training model. Anyways, the point is, you're always welcome to hang out down there. I know if you guys don't know, Data Sherpa works in the data space, because a Sherpa is kind of like a handler or an organizer of things, right? Or a guide of things. So if you guys don't know, that's kind of I don't know the exact origin of that word, but I know that's generally what it means. Somebody who guides or organizes things, right? All right, so let's look at this real quick. This one says, speaking of data, like you've got all these problems. It is a guide through the mountains of data. Yes. Yeah, there are mountains of data, and where it's from Himalaya. Yeah, I think that's where I had originally heard the term too. Yeah, they're the guys who like they can smoke a pack of cigarettes and walk up to the top of Everest, whereas like everybody else is dying like 6,000 feet under the top, All right, so check it out. Your team has determined that they need to centralize logging in an environment. For whatever reason, you weren't doing that. That's, by the way, really bad. If you're ever in an environment where you don't have access to the logs, let me just step back for a second and talk as an engineer here. If you are ever asked to manage an environment where you do not have the logs centrally sent off the servers, you should immediately... you can take that environment on if you want, but you should immediately remedy that. It would be the same as if I came into a new environment and they're like, here you go, Scott. Here's your 2,000 servers you're running for our company. You are in charge of them. And I would say, the very first thing I would say before this even would be, okay, how do we access the servers, and where are the keys? And if they say, well, you know, we just had like 5 admins leave and we don't have a key policy, I would immediately rotate every key in the company. And I would take over everything in that company. And you say, well, even to the detriment of everybody else. I would not affect the ability of like prod to log into things, but everything else in that I would take those servers over. And you say, well, how do you take servers over? Typically, if you don't have access to them, then you've got to let's assume we had to access them, we would push our own keys and take the old ones out. If we didn't have access, we would have to be booting boxes and taking access from them, because there's an old rule in security. This is an old rule, is like it's an old physical security rule that's been around forever. If I can take it, right, like if I have physical control of something like a safe, I will eventually get into it on my leisure. So if your safe is small enough for me to pick up and leave with, then I can do whatever I want with it. The problem is always if I can't get the safe out of the building, right? If I can't do that, then now I got to get into the safe while it's in the building, and that's not convenient for me, right? This is like an old, this has been around as long as there's been a problem of keeping things safe, right? Anyways, where I'm going with that is you need to control your stuff. You need to have your centralized logging of your servers set up. And I say this is a secure technical implementation guide, STIG, for government systems. There is a STIG that says you need to have centralized logging. And it makes sense. But in your case, it's just a good practice, and your team has been losing remediation time by not being able to see logs on systems until after the systems are back up. So you've got some kind of problem, you've got some kind of reboot, and you can't even go look at what was happening until the server comes back up. I'm going to tell you right now, that is like one of the worst spots to be in. It's so bad, because what if the system went down because it was mining Bitcoin and logging into your other systems? And you're waiting to get it back up just to put it back on your network to start doing bullshit again that it shouldn't be doing, right? What if we had logs and we can go, whoa, 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 that box looks like it was compromised. Throw it off in a different network, you know? If it's a device that's in the VMware space, we can strip its VM networks from it. If it's in a data center, we can actually physically pull cables out and only have console access to it. There's so many things that we may want to know about a server before it comes back up, right? So your management has been coming around talking about MTTR and MTTD, and you don't even know what that means, but you know that getting logs to a central place will help make it better, and management will leave you alone. If that's your only goal, that's still a good goal. Management will leave you alone if you're managing your stuff right. So, good. So we're going to verify that our syslog is installed and running on both systems. We're going to configure our syslog on control plane, which is the primary node, to capture UDP on the default port of 514. We're going to verify that our syslog is listening on that port, and then we're going to configure our syslog on node 01 to send logs over UDP to control plane. We have the option of using TCP as well, but if you want to send it over UDP, you can, but you got to make sure that you're only exposing UDP. It's actually interesting. It'll cause problems if you send to both, and I just send to one, right? Just get one working, and you can worry about making other ones work later, right? So then we'll verify that the logs are sending data from node 01 to control plane. So here's our little solution. Let's check to see if our syslog's there. It is. Let's check to make sure if it's there on the other node. It is. And then we'll go ahead and make sure that it's running on this one. It is running. You might have to hit Q here to get out, and then hit that next one, and yep, you see it running over on the far node as well. Okay, so it's there, and we're going to open up this port here, or we're going to open up this file, vi/etc/rsyslog.conf, and we're going to come down and we're going to look for the UDP section, and we're just going to hit X and X, and it says module load IM UDP and input type IM UDP on port 514. Good. We've got everything I really care about right here on this node. So that's it. That's all you gotta do. Escape :WQ, or your preferred method of getting out of VI, and we were there. It says now you know, and this is something you probably know if you've done all of our labs up to this point, or it's something that I'm going to tell you right now, is that Linux systems, their daemons, by default, do not, system daemons started by systemctl, do not automatically take configuration file changes without you manually restarting the service or rebooting the box. And the reason that is because what if I had done this? What if I had only done this and loaded the module, but then maybe I actually did this and I left that. Now that's a broken config. And then maybe I saved it, right? I saved it right now, but I'm still in here mucking around in the file, but the file's going and being read in real time. Well, now I've got a broken config and we're not doing anything. Yeah, there are some things that hot load config files, IQ. There are some things that can do it, but not much. Not many like actual system things, and we really don't want it. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this for now. Yeah, from systemd it would be so bad, because for this whole time until I went and made this right now, this would have been a busted system, and we don't want to do that, guys. We don't want to ever bust our system. We don't ever want to not have the data. We want to do things right. So even right now, if I do an ss-ntulp grep for 514, I should not have that running because I haven't restarted it. But when I restart our syslog, which most of us call syslog, you know, it's our syslog, but it's syslog in our hearts, right? And then we go look, and now we see we are listening. Anybody on IPv4 UDP, so IPv4 UDP can connect, and anybody on IPv6 can also connect, as long as they're connecting on port 514. So this is the any for IPv4 and the any for IPv6 right here. Well, there's other any's for IPv6, but that's the most common one. It's easy to look at. All right, so SSH to node 01 and 01. We'll go and we'll look at his and hit Shift G to go to the bottom. And at the bottom here, we can add this line, asterisk dot asterisk, so everything goes over to control plane on 514. Now, I didn't show you guys this in the lab, and I kind of thought about maybe showing this. If you were gonna do TCP and UDP, this will be your UDP send, and this one will be your TCP send. So, you say, well, what the hell, Scott? That looks kind of crappy. Well, yeah, check this out. Whoops. All right. If you want to do UDP send, you use one @ sign. If you want to do TCP send, you do two @ signs. So let's fix that because I don't want to bust the system. I'm going to comment out my TCP one. I'm going to delete all these extra lines because I don't need extra lines in the file. They don't really matter much. They're just literally bytes. But that's fine. That's fine right there. So we got to restart the service on this side. And if we restart the service here and exit back over and look in varlog syslog, we're going to see all of our control plane messages. But pretty quickly, we actually have one up here, we'll start seeing node 01 as well. And if you say, well, Scott, can you prove to me that you're also sending that? And I'll say, yes. Let's come over here, go to tab 2. And I can just do something like this. I can say, I don't know, while true, do logger. This is a log to stream. Sleep to done. Right? And that will just sit there and spin. But if I come back over here, every 2 seconds, that thing's going to log. And it's going to come all the way across the system over here. Control plane root. Did I? Hold on a second. Oh gosh, you guys got to stop me sometimes. This obviously went because this is local. You got SSH to node 01. You guys got to stop me sometimes. All right, let's paste that. Let's run it from over here. This is what matters. Is node 01 sending it over? I was wondering why it wasn't every 2 seconds like it should have been. So there's actually some batching going on. So see how node 01 is sending it now? there's a little bit of batching going on here, and that's fine. We're not really super worried about if things are batching or not. If it became if we needed a certain level of precision, we would probably use something other than this. But that's fine. That's fine. For logs and messages and stuff like that, that's perfectly fine. So we say, okay, good. We're ready to head on to the next part of the lab. So now it says, let's stop this and stop this. Now, you've enabled our syslog collection on control plane and set logs from to control plane on UDP port 514 from node 01. So you've done that. That's pretty cool, right? The data are flowing in our network. That's a good way to do things. But your team has decided they would like to break up the logs into more manageable pieces. Over here, you might have noticed that everything I was doing was right in here. So our syslog, if I just grep node 01, from syslog, it was all just dumping here. So let's do this just for fun. We'll grep that out, and then we'll do a word count -L, 37 lines, and then we'll get control plane, right? And that one has 3,899 lines. But does it make sense that if I had a big cluster like 1,200 nodes over time, there would be a lot of messages coming in here, and even with log rotate and stuff, they might be getting quite big. So maybe I don't want to log everything here. Maybe I want to split things out, and right here in var log, I could have it by the names of the servers. So this is actually how I run my clusters most of the time. I'm going to show you guys. We want to say var log host name and then messages.log. So we're going to break that log up into more manageable pieces so that we can go look at just the things we want. Now, if you're going to throw it to syslog and then feed it out to Splunk or some of these other, there's all kinds of seam and source solutions that are out there. But if you were going to do it this way, this would be a perfectly good way to do it. So let me show you guys what you can do. So we're going to go to control plane. We're on control plane. And let's go look at, there's this rsyslog.d directory. And in there, anything that you add is going to be appended to the end of your configuration file. So I'm just going to hit I in here so I can go to insert mode. And I'm going to grab all of this and I'm going to drop it in here, paste. And we're going to make a little template. And the template says, the template's name is remote logs. Remote logs go into var log host name, which is not, it's a place that doesn't exist yet, messages.log. And why do we not have, hold on. There is a problem with that. Hold on. Yep. I need to fix that in the lab, guys. See, this is why we were doing this, is so that I could fix stuff in the lab. I think somebody might have mentioned that to me, too. It's in lab 2, step 2. And then we come down here, and it's right here at the end of this. Boom. Var log, hostname, messages.log. Yeah, you can't just have an open. Okay. And I'm going to save that, and then I'll push the log up, or I'll push that change, fixed, closed, double. I don't know. Just fix double quotes. It's fine. Doesn't really matter. Now, it won't be fixed for us, but it'll be fixed for the next person that comes to the lab. And then we come down here and we do a very simple little thing. We say if the from host IP, and that's a special variable that looks at the IPs as they come in, right? It's almost like you're coming through like an egress point or an ingress point to like a country or something. And any of you guys ever traveled between countries? And when you do, you got to pull out your passport, and then they send you to different places and stuff. But this says, like, if you come from, let's say you come from Poland. Somebody here said they were from Poland. Let's say you come from Poland, and then we can do something with you. Well, in this case, we say, if your IP is not equal to my home IP, this is not super clever. It's just a simple way of doing it. If you're not this host, then you use the template remote logs. I send you over here, back up to this. If you are, then you'll just keep doing what you were doing earlier in the log file. And then we end. You could also change this, I think, to just the word end. You're going to see some messages, some error messages. That is the older way to do it with the ampersand tilde. That's an ampersand, right? And that's a tilde. Now restart the rsyslog server, and when we do that, we should immediately have this log. Well, as soon as it gets written to. It's not there yet. There it is. Now we can watch this log as it gets written to. And it doesn't get written to very often, but yeah, anything that's happening over on node 01 is now coming to our control plane node. Right, I'm on the control plane, and I'm in var log, and now I can go to node 01. So there's my full path, and here's my messages. And if I wanted to, I could just do something like this. I could say while true, do I don't know, date. Let's just do it like this. Let's say ls-l on messages sleep 2. Done. And what'll this do? You'll just watch this thing get bigger right here. Every time it gets written to, which is about every 10 seconds or so, it seems like it's batching. You'll see it get bigger. Yep. And those are the number of bytes. So it just added, I don't know, 160-ish bytes, a little under 160 bytes. There you go. Yeah, it's 100. Yeah, it's a little under 106. It's like 157 bytes or something. It's adding. Who knows? Maybe that's just one line every time. Slowly getting bigger, and we can see that, right? We can see that we're not generating those logs. We're just looking at the logs here on the server. We're looking at the actually long listing of it, and there we go. We're tracking stuff. We're seeing stuff. But let's make sure, as we are systems admins and systems engineers, let's make sure that we didn't break the original thing. So we split out those other nodes if they weren't our IP out of this varlog syslog where we were seeing them before. Now let's go look in varlog syslog and say, yeah, that looks like it's writing. Give it a few seconds. Give it a few more seconds. We should see it right in the, yeah, there we go. There we go. So we see that the system is writing. It is getting its normal system stuff. So let's say this was like the cluster head node. We want the cluster head node to just send to its own var log messages and whatever. But all the stuff in the cluster that's getting sent over is going to get logged out to, let's just say var log, whatever, anything in var log is automatically going out to our shared storage. We've got a big, multiple petabyte, maybe even an exabyte storage out there. And we could just have all the data sitting on it, right? So, all right, so there's that. So then I said, look, you learning Linux security. You set up a system logging, and we're able to see data flow from node 01 into control plane for centralized logging. And then I say, check on this to see more information about why we want to track logs in real time. And this deals with the attack.miter, right? Or attack.miter. And one of the things that people do with logs is they try to delete logs so that you can't see what's happened. Well, what if I told you, if we're sending the stuff off in real time, we know what, look, we might not catch it, but we will be able to see later what happened from the time that person first connected to a server. So you say, could they possibly have compromised it before I got this going? No, if this was baked in already and you turned your system up and you were in production, it is not possible to compromise the system before the logs are already sent off. It's not possible. As soon as you touch an open SSH connection to it, as soon as that is even being read, you are already getting logs off about that connection. So this is why logging is so important. It makes it harder for people to delete their logs because you threw them off in real time. There's no actual thing. Oh, did I just close the whole? I closed the whole lab. Then the last part of the lab was there's one little other part. Hold on, pull it up for you guys. And it said, what was that thing management wanted? They kept talking about mean time to repair, MTTR, right? So you go up here and you go like MTTR, Wikipedia. And what's a mean time to repair? Well, we were having a hard time repairing things because we couldn't look at the logs until after the system came back up. So let's say there's a catastrophic system failure and one of your nodes is down. You go in, you look down the back of the aisle. There's one big blinking red light. All the other lights are green. We know we know it's there. We know the node's not happy. Still got power to it, so it's probably likely not a power issue unless it's happening on one of the two sides. And typically a power issue in itself is not enough to take a box down. It is if the system's under tremendously heavy load like we are in high performance compute space, but that's fine. Let's say that it was enough to take the box down, but you're trying to figure out, was somebody running something on the server? Was something happening that should or shouldn't have been happening? Like, were people mining Bitcoin, or were they actually doing research with our high performance compute cluster? Well, you don't know none of that crap until you get that server back up. But what if you had everything logged off already, and you could be looking at that already, and maybe it's already alerted in your SOAR, right? Your security orchestration and remediation and automated remediation of stuff. Maybe that's there. What's this other one? MTTD. MTTD, which is also part of this, is your mean time to detect. What if we could detect things faster because we're properly looking at metrics, logs, and traces? Those are the three big ones that we always watch for, right? Metrics, logs, and traces. So, right? All right, so that's that. I'm going to add a third step to this lab. We only did those 2 steps, and then we got to the finish. I'm going to add another step to this where this actually came up today. MTT going to 0 with qubits one day. All right, so one of the things I was gonna show today, something actually happened where we wanted to. Let me show you guys something. Let's check, because I don't know. This is one of these things where I tell you guys, one test is worth 1,000 expert opinions, right? We could sit around all day, guys. We sit all day and talk about this. But what if we can just go look and see what the actual setting is? What if I told you on most systems, kernel is not being logged by default with syslog anywhere? It's going, your kernel messages are going to your ring buffer, your D message, but by default, most of them are commented out in here, and they are not actually going anywhere. Let's go look. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, it's not in here. Hold on. We'll go look. So this is not where it's configured in Ubuntu. This is why I was saying I don't know how Ubuntu does it. But I know where to find it. .d. Right, so in here, let's see how this is doing it. And I bet it's in this default over here. Yeah, here we go. And if I told you, let's go look. Let's make this a little bigger, because I don't need this. I don't need this other one right now. And we'll just view it. And you see, okay, so here's some standard log files, log by facility. And facilities are different things that are happening in the system. So auth, priv, and none go over to var syslog. And some of these other things are going to wherever they go. We're not doing cron by default, but if we wanted to track cron, we should. Kern is, in this case, Kern is automatically going. Kernel messages by default in Red Hat are off. They look just like that. But we'll allow those. And here's a bunch of different things and mail and other stuff that's happening and that are going wherever they're going to go, right? So what I was going to show you is that over here, we were not automatically sending this in Red Hat, the kern dot anything. But we are doing it here. So what I want to do kind of on one of these boxes then, whoops, I don't want to make any changes there. Let's just cd to varlog, and let's tail -f on kern.log, right? And there's some kernel stuff that's happened, but I don't know how long ago that happened. That happened on a day ago, right? So what I might need to do is make some traffic to go there, right? So let's do something that will actually write over there. So I'm gonna make this a little bigger so you guys can see it. I'm gonna say while true, do, and we're just gonna say echo, this is a message for stream, and then I'll maybe even add to it message for stream, and then we'll put like a date on it, right? And then I'll go ahead and say throw all of that into dev kmessage, and then sleep 5 done, right? So that's gonna go over here, but over here, if that's actually hitting that, that should be coming over here into the kernel message. Should be happening faster than that. Let's deconflict, just in case. Yeah. Not seeing an error. Oops. Not seeing an error. So kernel messages maybe do not allow me to write in Ubuntu. That might be a new kind of behavior for me. Kmessage. Did I spell it right? Yeah, KMSG. Yep. ls-l on dev kmsg. It is there, and it does. We can write to it, so that's good. While true, do echo that over there to dev kmessage sleep whatever. That was a water bottle, in case you were wondering. All right, hold on. Keep generating these. Sleep 5 done. Go. Yeah, this looks like it has completely stopped doing whatever kernel messaging that it might have been doing. And that's not that big of a deal, but the point is, sometimes you want to check that. Sometimes you want to make sure that kernel messages are being tracked and sent over. And I'm not exactly sure why that's not working. But I guess we won't worry about it too much. But the point is, you can send those kernel messages out, and those are by default being sent out as the machine boots up and as those kind of things happen. In Ubuntu, it doesn't do it like that in Red Hat, so it's kind of an interesting little difference between them. All right, so we did the lab, and it basically at the end says, look at you learning Linux. You did Linux security, you set up logging, and we're able to see the data flow. So you did all the things you needed to do. That's good. What else? What else were we working on? We were doing STIGs earlier. STIGs are just fine, but STIGs are kind of, you know, they're not super interesting. They're, I don't want to say they're boring, but they're just STIGs, you know. What we could do is just check on Ranger Dog, see how Ranger's doing. A dog. And again, I don't know how his thing got. Oh, I know how his thing got turned, but his camera's turned, so he's way over there. I gotta fix his beds later. Yeah, we all love Ranger. Ranger's almost 13, guys. Ranger makes it to 13, and you know that'll be good. He's got a couple of good beds, and he likes it. 73 downstairs, so it's nice and comfortable for him. I assure you, he's quite happy and comfortable down there. Don't let him look like he's not. Yeah, don't let him like he looks like he's not happy, guys. But I assure you that dog's pretty happy. He's pretty good. Plus he knows, like, so when I get back from the gym in the morning, I go wrestle at 5 a.m. with the other crazy people that wrestle at 5 a.m. Mostly all like police, fire, and vets and stuff. The guys that like to get up early still, right? And I'll go wrestle, and then I'll come home in the morning, and I throw my gi in the wash, and then I have to take off my undershirt. So I take my undershirt off, and Ranger knows if he can get up, and there's a hallway right over here to the left. If he can get up and get down that hallway while I'm in there. No, Ranger's big, guys. Ranger's like he's like almost 120 pounds. He's a big dog. He's not little. He's like a lab golden mix. Yeah, he's big. I think he's got some. He's definitely got some lab in him, and I think he's got some. Oh, my wife's got his. He's got a little card when he was born. The wife's got, but he's a mix. But he's a good looking dog. He's all around fun. But anyways, he knows if he gets down that hallway, while I'm in the bath, or while I'm not in the bathroom, while I'm in the laundry room, he gets a treat because there's treats in there, and he knows I'm in there, and he knows that I don't ever like to keep him from treats. So if I'm in, I just get back from the gym, I'm still all sweaty. I'm changing like my under my rash guard for my gi, and I'm switching that out. He'll come in there and then get his morning treat. And it was funny. He actually had his treat this morning before he ate his breakfast because the wife had just fed him. So he just came in and got that, and then he took off. So, all right. What was I going to tell you guys? Oh, let me tell you guys this again before I drop off of here. We've got a whole bunch of events coming up on August 3rd and 4th. They are all free. You can come sit through as many or as few talks as you want from different engineers that I know. There's engineers, architects. There's a couple of directors in here. There are, let's see, there's a principal architect here, a guy who teaches doctorate level economics. There's a lot of people here that are pretty good in their field. So you guys are welcome to come and talk and listen to them talk. August 3rd and 4th, we're just going to have events all day because that's us turning 5. Our Discord's turning 5 and our group is turning 10. So we've been running this professional Linux users group for a long time. It's, very informal. Nobody has to do anything. We just kind of hang out. Pretty much joining the Discord is being part of the group. So, all right, so and then there's people in there, people ask questions, people do whatever. So feel free to hang out in there if you guys want. That's all fun, and that's all free. Let's see, what else do I have in here? I show you guys this sometimes. You got a tool called Excalidraw. If you guys don't know, this is an open source tool. You can actually download and run your own Excalidraw locally. And then if you also further don't know, you can actually open up Excalidraw like I have it right here, right? Take Excalidraw right here. I'm in dark mode, right? Because you can reset the canvas, right? I'll be in a reset canvas. I'll be in dark mode as I am. Where's that? It's easier to see when I make it a little bigger. Hold on. Right? And there we are. We're in dark mode, but we'll also make the canvas background dark. And then we should be able to draw. Yep. And remove. And what I can do is I can share this with everybody. This is kind of a fun one. If you guys haven't ever seen this before, I can actually share this with everybody that's in here. And it's weird on Twitch side of things. It works just fine on the YouTube side of things. But on the Twitch side of things, you have to take it out and put it up in your browser yourself. But any of you can actually jump in here. And if I were to come in here and say, okay, guys, I'm going to draw out. This is kind of what we did today, right? Like this was our lab environment, maybe. Right, and then I say, okay, this is our lab environment for our syslog. And maybe I wanted to give you guys, anybody that jumps in that share, you'll immediately be in here. And any of you could have your own little part of this for taking notes. But we could say over here, we could be like, well, what did we do? Right? What did we do in this lab? Well, we said, first, set up, check our syslog. We did that. Check out our syslog is running. Right, so we did that in our environment. Then what do we need to do? We set control to capture data, right? So 1 was this, 2 was this. This was what we did in the lab. Set control plane to capture data. Maybe we move that in a little bit so it looks nicer. And then for 3, we say set node 01 to send data. It's gonna bug me, so I move it over just a little bit. And then we draw over here. Maybe we're curious of like what it kind of looked like, and we say, okay, control plane was here, right? This is our control plane node. grab him. Make node 01. Right? They both had a service in them, and we could maybe say that this is how we wanted to node a service right here. Our syslog maybe. And our syslog was on UDP port 514, right? So that was the port that it was catching. And then maybe we grab just this. And we say, okay. And then maybe we want to say, well, this guy was sending those. So we want to draw like, it's not necessarily like a cardinality, but it's the way that the data was flowing, right? The way that things are moving in the environment. We say, okay, good. And then this here, this guy right here, he existed. He had this this filter, right? He had this little filter to him. And he had these logs that could come in and send logs based on template, right? So you could send a template in, and then that, you know, that was tracking that, and then it would go put it off in the file system or whatever. Maybe take a little arrow like this, and we say, okay, because this kind of worked in that way. And then, you know, how do you want to draw things? How do you want to visualize things for other people? Is kind of, I want to say it's a big part of maybe doing some of the systems work you're going to run into, because well, let's see. There we go. Screw it. That looks fine. And you know, that's good enough for me. And then if I wanted to throw that up into a template, and so one part of this is it's like a thought exercise. I tell people, like I tell my college students this too. Thinking through what you did after a lab is tremendously important for you to like grasping what you did. I've told you guys this before, and some of you probably think I'm like a Chad or I'm joking. If I'm in a room full of 30 people and we're doing like a lab, like I have all engineers and we all go in for like a training, I'm telling you, I'm like number 1 or number 2 done in that room. And you guys might think, oh, he's being an asshole. No, I am. And I didn't learn a damn thing, but I was first. Then what I have to do is go back and think about what I did, right? There's more actually for me to add. By the way, if any of you guys go in here, I see at least one other person, you can save this image. You can save it to your own machine, and it'll save as a .excalidraw, and you can open it forever again, forever as long as you want to. Let's save this to a file. Look, it'll go to all my excalidraw things, and I'll say, let's say just log, rsyslog example, right? And then I'm like, okay, I don't mind working with people, but maybe I want to work on it on my own, and I can come over here and I can open a file, and I can go find those, which I always have a hard time finding them. I can never remember where I put those stupid things, but I'm pretty sure they're up here in the Linux group, and I think they're down in streaming, and then I think they're in, do you guys see it? Where the hell's that at? I can never remember where that is. Prologue. It's typically not directly in. I think sometimes I just have it in drawings, but I don't know why. I don't know exactly where I have it. I can never find the damn thing when I want to find it. Groups, prologue, presentations. Hold on. Oh. Oh, damn it. Presentations, and then it should be drawings, Excalibur. There they are. And now I can open this right here, because like maybe I didn't want to play with all you guys, right? Maybe I'm like, everybody's doing their own stuff, so I'm just gonna pull this one up myself, and then now I'll have it over here in my own system. And I don't tend to look at it like this, but it was dark mode over there, and then I can come in and I can move it around. Looks pretty good for me. I can change the background to dark if I want, and then change the canvas dark and do whatever. Can a file be used aside from Excel? Yeah, you can do your own file out here in yeah, over here in there's a tool inside of VS Code, or you can actually run, if you like Excalidraw. There's a GitHub, and you can run your own Excalidraw locally. You do not have to even. They're very clear though. They're like, we will not use your stuff. Man, look how good their stuff is. Like, I can't do anything near as good as that. But look at that. That's a cool. That's a pretty good little mock-up of like what a page might be or something. And you and your team can all be working on it collaboratively, right? And you never know what people are going to draw in here. But the point is, like, you've got this stuff, and then now, if I cut this right now, if I said, guys, nobody else, right, and I just cut it, you would still have your version of it, and you would still be able to save your copy of it. So I really like this. And I actually we were doing dashboarding a few months back on a team, and we were trying to figure out, like, okay, what do we want to see? What do we want to report up to management? What do we want to share out with other teams that work with us? Those are three very different types of dashboards, right? Like, if you're doing dashboarding, that's three very different types of dashboards. What do we want? Like, what do I want to see? I want to see broken stuff and working stuff, up and down of nodes. I want to know if there's, like, if I look down a row of 500 servers, is there one red one sitting there pulsing? Because the red server is literally the only one I care about. All the other servers are doing what they do. I'm the guy who comes around and smacks them on their head and makes them work again. Like, that's what I do to servers. I make servers work, right? In my clusters and stuff. So other teams, though, like management, they want to see an aggregation of how many Slurm jobs were run and what was our efficiency, and hey, why weren't we using but 70% of the cluster? How can we squeeze more out of this system? Because, you know, for every 70% you use, you wasted 30%. You guys know that, right? Like, for every 1 second your CPU doesn't do something, like, every other part of that second is wasted forever. You'll never get it back. That's why time division multiplexing, that's why virtualization exists, is to wring more out of this hardware, right? So anyways, my point in saying all that is, yeah, you're just sitting here and where was I going with that? So then the last one that we were doing was, what do we want to share with, like, we have a SOC. Our SOC is our security operations, but they also just kind of function like a network operations and are hands-on. Yeah, three totally different reasons to use whatever we're gonna do. Yeah, yep. And those guys, we wanted them to see, like, system performance type things. Like, we wanted them to see if something was starting to slow down because there were too many waiters in GPFS. High waiters in GPFS means that systems are waiting to get to read the metadata to then go check whatever, right? So high waiters is a really bad thing. It's a very good indicator, though. So we want people to see, like, hey, we average 3,000 waiters at any given time, but if we ever go up around 15,000, it's time for you to sit up and go, like, what's going on here? Something is behaving poorly in our environment, right? So yeah, if you guys don't use Excalidraw, I mean, let me recommend that you at least play with the tool a little bit, because you can do some really good stuff in there. And if you just want to visualize things that you're trying to understand better, or if you want to, there's just all kinds of things you can do with a tool like this, right? And I could sit here and talk about this kind of stuff, but if I show you something like this, and I go, guys, this is what we're going to do for the lab today, and you go, okay, I get it. That's kind of cool. The data's going to flow from here to here. What's 4? 4 is, so set node to send data, and then set a filter on control plane to ensure that logs are split out by hosts, right? And you can split them out by application as well. You can do a whole bunch of things, guys. You have all the power to do all kinds of things. Show me the lab. Woo. How's it going, Tawny? Yeah, let me show you the lab. So here's what we were doing. We were building out this lab environment with our syslog. It's the newest environment, or the newest killer Coda lab that I've put together. Oh, bit bright. Come over here to Creator at Tanis. I got a Prolog testing one. I'm gonna start putting together some tests for people that are like, oh, I'm ready to go, right? I'm ready to do this stuff professionally. I'm gonna start put together some tests that are more like what you might run into, you know. I think that's valuable for people. Like understand what's going on. You brought your Orange Book, nice. Oh, for STIGs, yeah. Man, I haven't heard Orange Book in a long time. If you're talking about like the STIG books, yeah. Actually, for people that are here for STIGs, I was doing STIGs earlier. We started off with Cisco, and I was showing like in my environment how I would go through these. Then I was going to go to MariaDB, and I pulled down the STIG for that. And then here's the things that I'm going to need to check to make sure that, in this case, there's only a certain number of connections. Which you might say, well, why is that a STIG? Why is it a STIG that only so many things can concurrent have sessions in my environment? Well, you know, I run my own MariaDB, and they're all. This isn't saying that it has to be a user that's on your system. This is assuming that the user has a real reason to be there. But you might say, well, why do I have to have only a limited number? Why would I limit my users? And I can assure you, if you ever ask in a group of people, yeah, Prolog cert, Tani, that would be the goal. If you ever ask a group of people that have been engineers, why should we limit the users in some way? You're probably gonna have people rolling on the floor, like laughing, like you might be like a great deadpan comedian after that. Because here's the thing: anybody that's worked with users know that users need to be protected from themselves. Users will break a system in profoundly strange ways that you are not ready for. Profoundly strange. And you say, wait a minute, Scott, how would a number of concurrent sessions matter? I mean, somebody will write a Python script that just opens up concurrent sessions, and it'll just spin up to the moon. And well before that system runs out of memory and open ports to connect to your database is going to run out of the ability to take those connections and keep running. Yeah, you are your own. I mean, you will find users crushing things in your environment if you let them. They will absolutely crush things on accident. I think I might have told you guys this. When I worked at AAA, I worked at AAA from like 2016 to like 2023, on and off in different roles. I had left there and come back. And then, so I was the Linux engineering lead, and then I was the platform engineering lead, which was over Linux and Windows. And then I was the red team lead, right, for like attacks. And all of these things that I did, there was this one problem that kept coming up. I'll air a little dirty laundry, but I won't tell you, like, obviously I can't tell you anything that's like specific. But let me tell you this. There was this one production database that had a service level agreement of responding in, I'm going to throw out a number. It was under 10 milliseconds. Let's say it was 5 milliseconds. This thing had to, in a very small right percentage of a second. So 5 milliseconds is very small. That's out of 1,000 in a second, right? You got 5 milliseconds to respond. This database slowed down probably about 8 or 9 times when I was there at the company. This database slowed down. And when that database slowed down past its SLA, which was to respond within 5 milliseconds for whatever it was doing, guys. This was like the main database that ran the whole company, right? Whatever this thing was. Every single time, every one of the 9 times that slowed down, every single one, without exception, was because some new developer ran some query against it from dev. Now, I'm gonna get ahead of everybody here. Everybody's gonna say, well, why the hell was a dev in non-prod able to run against prod? And I'm gonna say exactly. But that's what STIGs are. STIGs are like the protections against the dumb stuff that users will do without even knowing about it. How are you going to blame a brand new user for running something against a database they didn't know? They didn't even know. They barely logged into the system for the first time, and they barely even know their name or their account ID, right? So how are you going to blame them for it? No, we got to protect them from themselves. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you ever say, why should we protect users from themselves, you are going to be laughed out of a room full of engineers. Just because, yeah, it could happen to anybody. But yeah, we need to have, and this is why, like, what we call guardrails are so important in the cloud. Well, how are you going to be mad if somebody spins up $23,000 worth of a service in testing when you didn't limit them in some way? Oh, it is super funny. I see, it's super funny. But we just have to, it's one of these things where we just have to, like, look it in the face and understand it. So by the way, guys, these are all, this is a raw STIG checklist that was made from the different checks that I had downloaded. I have not run a scan against these in any way. In fact, I don't even know if there's a MariaDB scan that'll do this for me, right? Yeah, select everything from table. Yeah, it's real. That's a real thing. And even if it doesn't take the database down, it'll at least take the database down enough. It's the same thing with, do anybody here ever do Cisco? Like, I remember 20 years ago, and it is still the same today in Cisco as it was actually I started Cisco 24 years ago when I was just running around in the Army. I started doing Cisco classes. One of the first things you learn in Cisco command line, when you're learning it, you know, you're going to a formal school or you're just kind of learning it out in the real world, is you never run debug all. If you ever turn debug all on a production server or, well, a production switch or L3 switch or whatever you're doing, when you debug all, you will crash your terminal. Because it's now, when you debug all, you will see all console messages to standard output. So they'll come to your terminal and they'll crash it. You'll have no control over that system from there. Yeah, Cisco stuff. Yeah, Tony, that's where I started out, was all networking, right? In fact, we got a whole primer on networking for people that like that kind of stuff. But yeah, anyway, so the STIGs thing is, you know, and we can't just go through. Another thing about looking at this is I can't just go through and start swinging my arms around like one of those little wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men or whatever they're called. I can't just go flinging my arms around and go accept, and do every single thing that a STIG says. STIGs are guides, guys. They are guidelines. They are guide. Look at this. This thing says, determine where the DAV modules are located by running the following command. And it says, a web server can be installed with functionality by its nature is not secure. WebDAV is an extension to the HTTP protocol that, when developed, was meant to allow users to create, change, and move documents on a server, typically a web server or web share. Allowing this functionality development and deployment is much easier for web authors. Okay, now, this right here, I'm going to just say this right out, is one of the stupidest effing things I've ever read in my life. I didn't know what DAV was before this, but I can tell you that's really dumb to me as a systems engineer. But somebody wrote this. I'm not trying to shit on what somebody wrote. Somebody wrote this tool, and this tool obviously does what it does. And if you need it in your environment because you're a bunch of web devs, like I told you guys, I'm a systems guy. I'm a platform engineer up through getting the systems all connected and whatever you use it for. If this is the reason the servers that I built exist, obviously I need this on the servers, right? So a STIG doesn't override the need for while you're doing it, right? Like I need to go outside to go get my mail. But did you guys know when I'm outside I could be run over by a car? Did you guys know that? I actually have to cross the street. Did you guys know that like a car can hit you when you're in the street? Did you guys know that? Like it'll get you. Cars will get you. So now I'll just never go outside. Right? Do you see what I'm saying? Where it's like you have to understand the risk. This is what I tell people. This is like what we call like looking it in the face. Instead of going, oh, there's a risk of DAV, and then crawling down into the ball. You guys ever seen Grandma's Boy, where he goes boop boop boop, and he like turns into a little robot and falls down on the ground like an idiot? That's what that's like. You have to look at these things and understand why they are, and then you can say, well, we need it. We've got all the other. We're going to have a high enough percentage of the other things here, of what we're tracking, but we have to have this. If we can't have this, why don't we just go throw all the servers away and write back on chalkboards? Do you guys see what I'm saying? Yeah, Tony, I wasn't really trying to shit on web dev. I was just using it as an example, or web dev. I've never even heard of it before I just read it there. But I know that in 99.5% of web servers, this does not make sense to have on. This is insanity. Why would I let people reach into and do stuff with documents in my server? That's absolute insanity. If they can get that, if they can change things, and if they can happen to execute things, they just rooted my box, right? This seems like insanity to me, but somebody needs it. So why, but anyways, this is what STIGs are. Coming down here, web server must listen on an IP specified address and port. Without specifying an IP address and port for the web server to use, the web server will listen on all IP addresses available to the hosting server. If a web server has multiple IP addresses, it'll listen to all of them. Well, that's ridiculous. But I can't defend this one. I can't defend this one at all. This is insanity. This is literal insanity. But hold on. If you turned this on in a virtual desktop that you ran in your own machine, and it was on a non-bridged network that only you can get to, because you wanted to do burp suite tests against 1,000 ports at a time, maybe I'd be cool with this. But no, not really. This is terrible. So my point is, but look, my point is, most of us, I would have never thought of this. But somebody thought of this because somebody turned this on one day, and this is what STIGs are, right? We come in, we can look at things. Apache web server accounts access the directory tree, the shell or other operating system functions and utilities must only be administrative accounts. How about no? How about you don't do any of that shit through Apache? How about that? So there you go, right? But the point is, they're going to tell you here, turn this stuff off. And then that's what you do is you go verify. So you guys might be looking at this going, Scott's being kind of silly, but I've got 47 rules that I have to validate against one of my Apache web servers in my environment. I only have one Apache web server. Nobody can ever get to it. Hey, RoboDom, how's it going? RoboDom, do you mind letting the people know about the Discord and stuff? I don't know if you mind linking that, but I appreciate it. I also appreciate the subscription. Keeps you guys from having to see ads and all that good stuff, so it's always good. But yeah, where are we at here? Also, fun, but we won't worry about that. All right, so we keep going through here. I'm just looking at these at random. Apache web server must only contain services and functions necessary for operation. That's true. Remove things that don't belong there. Remove any unnecessary applications per ISSO. That's your information security site organizer. There's some, what does ISO stand for? I always forget. What does that mean? Information System Security Officer. There it is. Yeah, RoboDom, I need you here. I need you here to tell the people all the things. And then we did the lab earlier, right? So we did the lab, and then we drew the lab out just so people could kind of see what the lab looked like, right? As if you were drawing it so that you knew in your head kind of what you were doing. So, yeah, Tawny's here. Tawny's hanging out. Tawny, T-A-N. Tawny, I don't know if you were around, but I started setting up. I found out the other day. Let me pull this up for you guys. Hold on. Let me show you guys something that's maybe useful to some of you. If you're in our Discord and you want to just hang out there and then, run away after you grab everything, I don't care. But what happened was, we put up a bunch of certs that are free. These are all free certs out there in the industry. And one of them comes from ISC Squared. Now, I happen to be pretty involved with ISC Squared. I have a CISSP. I have a CCSP. The first 1 million of these certs are free, and I'm pretty sure they're not at 1 million yet. So, there's all these different ones here, all these different data ones down here that you can go get. We got different resources, different places for you to go look for things, but here's a bunch that are just free. And we worked very heavily with API Academy a few years back, about a year and a half ago, and one of our guys put together a really good study guide for that. It's an open book test for all 3 of their tests, and they're really excellent training, I think. Chaos engineering, Six Sigma, engineering type stuff. But the cybersecurity one, I started to put together an outline for it, which is actually what's back here, right? This is what's doing our closed captioning. And then what I started doing was I said, okay, I'm gonna get this organized where I'm gonna start to break out the different domain concepts, right? So I can talk to them. And then these are all the ones that I haven't done yet. I have a lot more to do in here, but understanding security concepts of information assurance. This is one of their things. This is one of their rules. So confidentiality is who can see the data, right? But then I start splitting out other things that come into that. Like, so if you just get asked, if somebody just asks you about confidentiality, availability, and integrity, CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But in these security concepts, they're not really, they only talk about confidentiality and availability here. Well, one of the things is who can see the data is like the most bottom tier rung understanding of it. That's cool. Confidentiality, who can see the data, good. If you're just like in like a security plus or something, you need to know that. Availability is uptime. That's what you need to know. How up is the system? But then when you get like deeper and deeper into these and you start to dig in, for us to define confidentiality and who can see the data, we need to start labeling the data. And when we label the data, we can start to have tools that will protect against exfiltration of data, which is data leaking out of our systems. Well, if we're going to label data, we need to know who the owner of the data is. So who owns the data? The data owner is the one who determines the labeling of the data. So somebody is generating data, some system is building, whatever out, and then that data is getting labeled as sensitive or protected confidential or whatever. Your organization can have a bunch of things. I actually have a, I don't know where it is right now, but I have a little mouse pad somewhere in my house here that has all of my cybersecurity labels for when I worked at AAA. Robodom, does that help up setting up least privilege? It's a little bit different than least privilege, but it's similar, Robodom. Least privilege is the idea that we don't go higher than we need to. But you could, yeah, you can make a case that confidentiality has a little bit to do with rule of least privilege. A little bit, not much, a little bit. And then once the data owner, so by the way, guys, let me tell you guys something very, very important. I have never, anywhere I've been in an organization, ever formally been a data owner. But do you know that I've almost always been across tens of thousands of servers in my career? Actually, let's say tens of thousands for now. I could probably go figure out hundreds of thousands, at least 100,000. But let's just say tens of thousands of servers. I have been the data custodian. I am root everywhere I go. Not Groot, I am root. I am the owner of the server. I am responsible for that server like a shepherd is responsible for his little flock. I need to protect those stupid servers from doing stupid things all the time, right? So who is the data custodian is anybody who can give people access to that data, but they should only be giving it if the data owner has given them the rules. And then now you have to have there's all these things that come into this. But at a high level, this is what you need to know, right? Confidentiality, who can see the data? Availability then is like, it's expressed in uptime, expressed in the number of nines. 5 nines equals 99.999% uptime. That would mean 5 nines down here. If you get all the way to 5 nines, that means over the course of a year, you only take 5.26 minutes of downtime. That's an insanely low amount of downtime. Most of your servers, most of your desktops probably don't even keep that. Like if you've ever come in and your server had just rebooted itself and you hit enter and try to bring it up while you want to use it, and it takes more than 5 minutes, you've already blown past. You are not at 5 nines of downtime for the year, or uptime for the year. I'll show you guys some stuff. Most government systems I've worked on over the years are a 98. Well, we'll go with this. Most of them are 98.5, but we'll go with it. I don't see that on this list. But a 99.5, which is 1.83 days of downtime. If you had one of these, that's okay. But if you had 2 of these sitting next to each other, that is near 100% overall uptime, where the chance of 1.83 days coinciding with the other one being within its 1.83 days across 365 days is very low. In fact, we could go do the math on it if we wanted, right? So, what's the chance of that happening? It's under It's under 1/3% chance of that happening. It's closer to like 0.21%, right? And we can go do the math on that if we cared. But the point is, like, you can get really, really low percentage chance. Yeah, good. Okay, yeah, yeah. Okay. So then there's this. Anyway, so we come back up here and expressing this, and then we expect individual systems to fail. That's actually a concept that's discussed often in the cloud, right? Like, we expect them to fail, so we build in redundancies and try to avoid SPOFs, SPOFs. If you see that on any of your security tests, it's bad. Single point of failures are terrible. We don't want only one person to know how to do a thing, or to be responsible for a thing, or, you know, we've built this really robust cluster inside behind one network connection in. That would be Meta and Google. Yeah. So one of the things, I sometimes tell you guys my single point of failure stories, but it comes from telecom. When you put out a RFP, a request for product, or a request for RFC, which is RFQ, request for quote, right? What you're asking for is somebody to come in and give you their plans on how they would implement something. NK Coder, you said, is running Windows over Linux your personal choice? No, I run Linux all over the place. So no, I actually prefer running Linux pretty much all the time. Okay, so over here, we expect individuals systems to fail, so single points fail. Anyway, so what I was saying was, into a data center, we would have like a connection, right? We'd have some internet connection. So we would want a secondary redundant connection coming in. So we would ask for an RFQ, request for quote, from somebody, and all kinds of people would come in and say, you know, we can provide you with this and we can provide you with this. And one of the things that you need to put into that is you must be the incumbent carrier. So, does everybody here know what an incumbent carrier is? An incumbent carrier is the one who put the line in. Competitor carriers are allowed to lease the line from the incumbent carrier at a fair rate according to the Telecommunications Act of 1995. You say, why the hell do you know that, Scott? Well, because I'm technically the oldest of the telecommunication. So I'm the last of the telecommunication majors that came out of DeVry as they were changing over to a network communication management degree. So my degree is in network communication management. But anyways, so where I'm going with that is, if you come in and you're a competitor carrier on a line, so we've got a line, and you know, it's AT&T, let's say. And then some competitor comes in from jacksuperfastinternet.com or whatever, but they're a competitor carrier on that same line, and we're not smart enough to know that we need to check that they're the incumbent. What we have now done is we still have a single point of failure of one internet connection in, but now we're paying for it twice. That sounds pretty dumb, doesn't it? If you think about it, they have two different names, but they're using the same line. One is the person who put the line in, AT&T, and the other one is jacksuperfastwhatever.com, and he is the competitor carrier on the same exact line. So do I actually have redundancy, or do I have a single point of failure still that I'm just paying for twice to feel good about myself? Guys, I have seen that happen at least 3 times in my career. You've got a carrier grade VPN. I just tried selling it to telecoms. Yeah, I have seen that happen at least 3 times in my career, where people did not vet the systems and they signed a contract, and we had, and look, it's dumb when it happens, but if you have 3 lines, it's better, 3 redundant links. But when you have 2 that are on the same incumbent and one's a competitor, you're literally paying for the same thing twice. It's stupid. In fact, some of those incumbents provide services to the competitors. Hey, you can start. Did you guys know? If you guys don't know this, let me tell you something that you probably should know. Did you know you could start a phone company tonight? Any one of you, any of you in the U.S. I can't promise you outside the U.S. In the U.S., if you want to sell services over like Cox Internet or CenturyLink, they must give you a fair rate to lease that from them at the same rate that they would sell it to themselves. They have to. It's the law. It's the law of the land in America. Most people don't know that. Now, do they have to make it competitive for you to run your own data center? No. Nope. And they don't have to make competitive for you, or competitive for you to run your own call center against them either. But a lot of them actually provide, I know that Cox does this out here, they will run in their data center, they have people that will answer the phones as your company. And then they will troubleshoot the Cox internet line right over your network. What about new ISP globally? No, I mean, not necessarily that, NK Coder. I can only speak to laws I know in the U.S., and I can guarantee you right now that the Telecommunications Act of 1995 allows you to be the competitor carrier on any line that goes anywhere in the U.S. You can 100%. They do get a monopoly on running the lines, Tani, but there are competitor carriers that make money out there. But man, you got to make it on margin. It's just like you can make money. Did you guys know you could make money just like stigging servers? That STIG stuff I've been doing. You could STIG servers and put them up in AWS, but I mean, you're making fractions of a penny per hour that companies run them. But you know, it's that same idea. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, like Roblox. Roblox, when people build like whatever the little skins are and stuff like that in Roblox, it's like you know, people get mad about this. Like Roblox takes like 50% of whatever they're selling. But do you guys know what you get when you do that? You get like like 100 million people that play Roblox around the world. So you've got a huge pool. It's just like when people get mad that you know, if you want to sell stuff in Walmart, they're gonna make you make it for cheaper, but you're gonna have like literally millions of people looking at it. LLM STIGs, here we go. Yeah. Tani, I was just looking, so we have a lab out there, and one of our guys put together a lab, Fisherman did a lab on LLMs, and it's a pretty good one. I think people can learn a lot from it. But I was looking at running my own LLMs here in the home lab, and then I was going to use it for, like, while I'm on stream here, I could just have it pop up, kind of like one of these little web things that are popping up on the right there. And then as we're talking or whatever, if people ask questions, the bot could just be a smart ass for me. Then I don't have to be a jerk to people. The bot can just be a jerk to people. Yeah, Tani, that's the point. Real quick, hold on, I'm gonna walk and grab water. Give me 1 second, guys. I got water right here, but Alright, I'm going to tell you guys something that's going to date me for how old I am. When I went in the U.S. Army, they still use social security numbers for your Army ID. That was as late as 1999, by the way, guys. There was a guy in the Army. I think he got this motivation, whoever he was. I think he got this motivation from the movie Office Space. Office Space got its motivation from something that actually happened in like the 70s or 80s. You can go read that up. NK Code, yeah, I was a combat infantryman, yes. Expert and combat, if anybody cares. But, yeah, I was in the U.S. Army, yep. So, check this out. In the movie Office Space, they round the pennies down and then put it all in an account, and they make like $3 million on accident, right? A guy did that in the Army while I was in. He was rounding like 3 to 5 cents off of everybody's paycheck. And it was only like if a paycheck was like gonna be like $291.03, you know, something like that. And you say, wait a minute, that sounds like a really small paycheck. Yeah, I didn't get paid very much in the Army. But anyway, something like that. He would round those down. And they found him, but not until after he had scraped like millions of dollars out of payroll in the U.S. Army. He was some paperwork guy that just, he hit a button, and he was the guy who like sent the money over. And he was like, well, if I just change this, it'll send the money to me. And he defrauded the government out of millions of dollars. Early 2000s that happened. Anyway, so back over here. And then when we're talking about uptime, that's us thinking of like how available our systems are. But when we monitor systems, how do we make sure that things aren't failing to do what they need to do, right? Like uptime is just a checkbox. Like, go look, the light's on, okay, we're good. But what about, yeah, the make money button. Yeah, it was ridiculous. But what about this? What if we said we can do service level indicators to help us figure out how the service is doing? And service level indicators kind of one of these things, like I learned this from doing a lot of Prometheus recently, where, you know, a service level indicator is like my web server's running along, and every 5 minutes it produces, my web server produces 400 200 OKs, right? 200 is great. 200 means good. And it averages between like 3 and 5 total, not 3 and 500, just 3 and 5 300s. And it's like 1 or 2 100s and 1 and 2 400s. That's it. That's all. But all of a sudden, I start to see like 10,000 in the last 5 minutes. I see 10,000 400s, right? And now, well, I know 400s are client side and 500s are server side, right? Like we know what these numbers mean. And those service level indicators, I'm keeping track of that, and I start to see like something's happening to my system. I'm getting scanned. I'm getting, somebody's looking for broken links. Somebody's looking for common things like /cart and /help and /info. And what was the old one? What was the old one that was like the worst thing ever to leave open? PHP info, right? Anybody remember that? It was PHP info, open paren, close paren. You guys remember that? Just, it dumped your whole server to the screen. Really awesome when you first set up a PHP server in the early 2000s to do that and see everything, but then you immediately pulled that shit out because why show it to everybody, right? Yeah, well, yeah, Robodom, there's ways to indicate that things are happening to your system, yes. Yeah, vulnerability scanning, yeah. Or just, you know, some weird stuff's happening. And anything that's just anomalous, anything that's not normal, anything that's not my server just creeping along with, you know, 400, 200 responses every 5 minutes is a service level indicator possibly of some weird thing. And you can't define them all. That's why you got to define what is good, right? Oh, and that could be a percentage. So in that 5 minute window, that 400 of all my requests might be 95%. So a 95% over the last 5 minutes of 200 is about what I expect. If it ever drops below 92, maybe, I know that some event is occurring. And that could be something I define. And then I can have that trigger. And then that trigger is what we call an alert. And then that alert can go out and show up in Grafana and go to emails and go to PagerDuty and go to all these tools. But the point is, first we need to understand that we're looking for something. Service level indicators feed up into service level objectives. So I want to get to a certain percentage of whatever. And then we maintain service level agreements with customers. Customers, for me, are almost always internal, but they can be external if you're like a web developer or you're somebody that does something. SLAs are written into contracts, often have real money tied to them. Sometimes we have a thing called chargeback inside of an organization, and they have ties to chargeback. You know, I'm billing some other team for 80,000, you know, 80,000 fake bucks, whatever our fake bucks are, in the organization. And now, because I violated some SLA, I can't charge them for, you know, but 40,000. And then at the end of the year, I get a lower budget because of it, because I didn't provide whatever my SLA is, and they get to keep that budget that they were paying me. So they're super happy. They want to watch that. And I want to watch that because I don't want to be breaching service level agreements. All right. So anyway, so then, who's the data custodian? Data custodian is somebody who does not own the data, but is kind of responsible for carrying it from place to place. So data owner would be the person generating the data, the person doing research on the data, maybe the person who he's going to give people rights to access data. And then the data custodian is guys like me who we run the servers. Like I'm always the guy running a server. And my job is to keep that data only being seen by who the data owner says should see it. And labels help me do that. Labels help me to tag data and move it according to metadata, where data is created and how we create it. When we have mandatory access control on things and you dump something in a bucket, it will get automatically set a certain way. Those kind of things. Best way to make a service better is to pay less money. Yeah, right, Tani. Yeah, we starve out our people that do all of our all of our services. But the point is, what they should do is they should do better, right? That's the goal. Make them work better. But yeah, I get what you're saying though. Don't starve them out. So data custodian can be typically admins on the server, platform engineers, software engineers can be data custodians, because a data custodian, like let's say you're a software engineer who builds data pipelines. You ingest data, you move it over to a database, and then you maybe validate it every time it gets written over there. And that's what you do as a software engineer, or like a data pipeline engineer or something. You still don't own that data. That data owner is probably, they probably gave you access to some API that either they had paid for. Let me give you a good example. When I worked at AAA, we got tremendous amount of data from the National Travel, NHTB, National Highway Travel, NHTSB, National Highway Travel and Safety Board, right? Is that right? Yeah, that sounds right. I think it's NHTSB. That sounds right. And I would get that data in, and I would bring it in with this secured drive, and I would load it all up, but I was the custodian. And you might think of it like this. If the data owner gets tapped on the shoulder when he's walking out on a Friday and says, hey, can I get that little bit of extra data from you? This guy can say yes. If you tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, can I get at that, access that data? I'm going to push you out of my cube and say, get away from me. I don't know you. No, I can't authorize people to look at the data. Well, unless I was explicitly given that by the data owner. Does that make sense? So that's kind of the difference between a data owner and custodian. Oh, can I look at the data all I want? Nobody could stop me en route, guys. But I can't give that power to anybody else. I can't disclose it. And there's a certain responsibility, like keeping systems up and running. You gotta take it seriously. You're at the helm. Like I used to tell my wife, like I'd come home and I'm like, I never wanted to do this. I'm just saying, like, I am always one command away from just crashing our servers at the company. If I made one mistake, I could take out every server in the company. This is, by the way, part of why rule of least privilege is possible and important. I jokingly say, so it was asked earlier about rule of least privilege. The way I describe rule of least privilege is very visceral, and I think it bugs people, but I'm still going to tell it to you guys because I think it proves the rule in a way that sticks. This is it. Robodom knows it. The rule of least privilege works like this. Does the sheriff of the town get to carry a gun? The answer is yes. The sheriff of the town does get to carry a gun. Does the sheriff of the town get to carry a gun and point it at your chest all the time while he's walking around doing things, and when he's asking you questions, and when he's like patting your kid on the head who's eating ice cream, is he allowed to be pointing it at them? No, effing of course not, right? That's something from like Blazing Saddles or something, right? But the point is, that's what rule of least privilege is. You can break glass and you can skin that smoke wagon, right? As he says in Tombstone, you gonna skin that smoke wagon, or you just gonna stand there and bleed? Right? He tells that Billy Bob Thornton, who I can't stand Billy Bob Thornton, so I love watching him get smacked around in that movie. But anyways, the point is, you can pull it when you need it, and you can use that privilege, but you don't get to just run around with that privilege all the time. Yeah, I see. Oh, thanks for coming by. You're always welcome. You're always welcome down the Discord and hang out, all that good stuff. All right. So anyways, there's that. There's this, which is just availability and how it looks. And what I want to show you is it gets really, really, really small. As you go up, it gets really small. And somewhere right around here, somewhere right around 2 nines, the 998 and 999. And you start to try to go from 3 nines to 4 nines. And you try to go from 4 nines to 5 nines. There's a thing in there that happens with cost called an order of magnitude increase. Does everybody know what an order of magnitude is? Let me just not assume that everybody knows some of these things. But let's say this one right here for 3 nines. Let's say this solution cost $100,000. When you wanted to go to 4 nines, and we talk about a 1 order of magnitude increase, you add a 0 on the end. And then when you want to go down here to the next one, and I say that for every 1-9 you want to add on the end of this, it tends... Now, guys, this is not a hard, fast rule. I'm just telling you generally, you are going to pay an order of magnitude more for each of those 9s. And you say, well, what about 6 9s or 7 9s? Oh, it starts going. It starts getting a lot. But what are you trying to get to, right? 12 9s? What are you trying to get to, right? So anyways, that's the thing. You don't have to memorize all of this chart for any test out there. And then there's more domain 1. These are directly taken from the ISC squared certified in cybersecurity test, right? These are the outline. This is the like the study guide outline for it, and I'm just adding my own little color to it. But then we have to be able to authenticate. We have to prove that a principal is who they say they are. How do we prove that you are who you say you are? And when I say principal, a principal can be a user, they can be an application, they can be a service account, they can be a user coming in with a different service account, they can be an application as a service account, they can be a user pretending to be an application. That's about it. No applications or service accounts should ever pretend to be users, but those are things. A lot of times you will generally hear them called principals. And it is with an AL, like principal is your pal, right? They're principals because it's the, that's the term for it. They're your pal, right? Principal, P-A-L. I hate that it keeps saying principals wrong. Like they're your principals. It's principal. There we go. That's just the name for him. The principal just means, trying to think of how we use that in English. But then we have different ways that we authenticate. You can have single factor, 2-factor, 3-factor. Those all fall into multi-factor once you get into anything higher than 2. We call it MFA, multi-factor authentication. But principals always bear some type of items or some type of way to prove who and what they are. Some of those are something they know, which is a password. Sometimes there's something they have, like a token or a certificate. Sometimes there's something you are, the biometrics, fingerprint, retina scan, iris scan. You also have where you are. You can also have when you are. You say when you are. Yeah, I can give you access only for the months of July and August. And if you don't get the work done in the next 2 months, then your access automatically, we have to do something to keep your access, but we set your access to only be there till a certain amount of time. Yeah, something you own typically is like something you have, right? But then we come down here, this isn't, again, intended to be all the things that you could possibly have for multi-factor authentication because it's a lot. But did you guys know that, and so I'll tell you guys, this actually happened on some government projects I was on. Did you know that the security guards are trained during retina scans to not joke around with people about maybe you're pregnant? Because did you know that the very highest way, the fastest way that you can find out if you're pregnant, if you're of the physiology to become pregnant, is you will get, there will be changes in your blood pressure and the back of your retina will change. And that will happen, and it can be detected in as quick as 2 weeks. So you might say, oh my gosh, that's fast. Why doesn't everybody use that? Well, who goes to their doctor that often? Nobody. But who, if you're working in government systems, you absolutely go and get your eyes scanned all the time. Yeah, so they'll find it. They'll have people come in, and they won't be able to get in. And they'll be like, maybe you're pregnant, and then find out the woman's pregnant. So they are trained. You are trained up and down. If you ever do government security stuff, do not joke around like that. Don't. Just say, there must be something, do you have, some other factors that we can validate and get you into this facility. You do not joke around about them being pregnant. They probably pick it up pretty quick too, because everybody knows retina scans change over time. Your iris never changes over the course of your lifetime, barring some kind of like knife fight you get in, down in Tijuana or something. Anyways, if multiple are used, it's considered MFA, 2FA, 3FA, whatever you want to call it. It is not considered MFA if 2 in the same category are used. So if your biometrics are a fingerprint and a retina scan, that is not multi-factor authentication. That's just 2 biometrics. It is single-factor authentication. And you say, but I double-checked you. I fingerprinted and retinaed you. Well, you should have fingerprinted and made me present a token of some type instead, right? So that's that. And actually, it's funny, that's as far as I've gotten on this. Well, I have some other things written up, but that's all I was going to show. I actually wasn't even going to show that today. We were doing STIGs, right? We were in the STIG scans, and we were breaking things down. And I was telling you guys kind of what some of my stuff was going to look like. Oh, yeah, and shoot, I got to get off of here. I got some other project stuff that I need to work on. But for any of you guys that stuck around, remember, you're always welcome to hang out down in the Discord. Remember that you are welcome to, again, take anything you find out of there and use it. If anything in there is useful to you, you don't even have to let me know, but if you do let me know, I appreciate it. And I will be back on the end of this week. Man, I got so much work to do. I will be busy, but I will be streaming this weekend because the wife's going out of town. So I will have some time to stream. I will also turn my camera on. Don't worry about that. It's just sometimes in Phoenix it's so goddamn hot that I can't even sit in here with the damn green screen behind me because it gets so warm. Even in my office where the rest of my house is 73, my office will start inching up, and it's just too much heat. So all right, we'll talk, guys. Let's go to the end of stream thing. Make sure you're hanging out if you want. I can't make any of this stuff happen for you. I can't get you in the industry. You've got to want to get in there yourself. I tell you guys all the time, like I'm gonna start saying this more, but like I'm really selling hard work. I'm not like I'm selling you guys an easier way to look at it, and I'm selling you guys like you can do it, but I'm telling you it's still gonna be work. There's no easy way to get into systems engineering. And I guess in a certain way too, there's no easy way to get into cybersecurity either, if that's what you want to do. You have to just be willing to read a lot and work on stuff and understand how things work. So all right, we'll talk later. I'm not going to get up